Welcome back to the BUSR here on a Wednesday evening once again. This time we're heading out over to Interlagos in Brazil. We are going to have the final round here this evening with John Binder comfortably in P2, currently on our screens for the remaining of practice, but we'll be shortly going over towards qualifying in about 15 minutes time. At the moment, a lot of people in the UK are enjoying the eclipse, but unfortunately, I am joined by two amazing commentators who have to put up with me instead of the eclipse. Welcome, Raul and Adam. How are you guys doing?
Well, pretty sad, first off. I haven't seen an eclipse yet, but we're here for a much better time of our lives, which is an LMU race here in Brazil.
as John goes very off the track there. So great on point timing there from John. He wouldn't want to prefer to watch some race cars go around a circuit rather than watching outside. I'm sure that is what everyone is coming here to tune into. What do you reckon, guys?
Yeah,
Well,
probably the sun getting into John's eyes there. Maybe there's also another eclipse on Brazil, but we shall see.
As John is bouncing around the circuit, I know that our producer is preferring the eclipse on us. That's why we're just sat on board with John at the moment in practice, starting so early on. Looking at the standings, though, we do see that Oliver is going to be trying to take that fifth position in the standings. Not having the rival of Martin in this race, we'll have to just try and capitalize on as many points as they can here today. While looking at Costa trying to overtake Kiriv, who currently also isn't here in the standings. Looking a bit lower down, you have Viney trying to overtake Joe Larkin in the same situation of they're in this race trying to capitalize on the lack of their appearance as of the moment. Whereas John Binder trying not to bin it. That's like the main thing with this guy at this point. He's here every week.
Sliding in the puns already, are we, Kieran? I thought the first person that was going to get the puns out would have been Rao, whereas as he's already got a bet going on that we'll see if you guys can try and work out.
Yeah, probably our purpose or our targets for this race have been eclipsed by multiple different stuff, but we're definitely trying our best as we watch over John here. Just John, I guess, as we wait for the other drivers and our producer to set out on track.
Maybe that's why we've not got that many cars on track at the moment. Everyone is out there being quite bored and staring at the sky as darkness does become upon us here for any driver, anybody that is in the UK.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm personally more interested in the meteor shower that's meant to be happening afterwards, but I think that's more interesting to myself. But hey,
Yeah, definitely interesting weather stuff happening. Well, pertaining to weather, we do have some interesting weather coming here in our race today, as we do see a clear sky out for qualifying. Very high temperatures ranging from 26 down to 24 towards the end of these sessions, but during the race there might be some weather potentially during the end of the race as we see Blinder bin it into a wall, totally eclipsing, watching the sun and just practice over, I guess, guys.
I'll tell you what I could just imagine just a second ago there, Al, is you just standing in front of a green screen just doing weird hand movements as the weather sort of starts to come on. I'm just imagining you right now as a weatherman just doing sort of hand movements, say, and as the weather comes slightly eastwards, yeah.
Yeah, definitely some hand movements there. Definitely my hands would be doing some eclipsing, but
okay,
we shall see.
Okay.
And we've just lost half the audience there because everyone's just like, oh, here come the puns.
They call us pundits for a reason, you know. It's all about the puns at the end of the day. That's what keeps people around.
I'm surprised you didn't get any puns out on Monday with my surname, Mr. Kieran.
Me calling you Jack Sparrow. All right.
Well, Sparrow does
none of this. I was talking about Jack Noller first, and then I changed my point onto you and just combined your names to be Jack Sparrow.
Don't you worry, that's happened multiple times in Maverick 5 racing. But,
well, that's just efficiency at its finest, really. Getting two names at once.
There's looks like there's no one out on track at the moment. I guess everyone is currently watching the sky.
I mean, one of them did almost die.
And for the weather report, if you look outside your houses right now, maybe not directly at the sun, you should start to see the moon slowly eclipse the sun partially. keyboards.
How many times we said Eclipse challenge? Don't lose your mind.
Well, if we're gonna lose our minds over one thing, it's better to be for something slightly important to myself.
And if anybody's out there in on the chat that wants to join in the conversation, feel free to, and be good to join into the.
If you're doing that role, then sure, go ahead. I am reading chat, bro.
As long as it's relevant, let's say. Just like people like to call in for other endurance series as well, but we won't go into detail of that. But as we are sort of getting to the peak of the eclipse, I think no one is going outside, so no one's going out the pit. So I think that is currently what is happening right now.
I mean, Auto Camera has not done its job and hasn't swapped over to Costa, who did go out onto the track. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, so apologies to everyone that is currently watching just a pit lane. So they've just got to deal with our voices.
Sadly, I have to deal with our voices. I don't know why anyone would put up with that. As we are also hoping for our producer to come back so we can maybe have some action going on. It is roughly meant to start qualifying at 10 past here for LMU, but the in-game timer don't seem to be moving, so I hope everything will switch over correctly without any issues, because usually that timer is ticking down, but it hasn't seemed been doing so.
It's a little bit broken. What's your guys' thoughts on the circuit? I personally am a fan of Interlagos. It provides some great racing, got some good technical sections and some great overtaking places as well.
Well, for me personally, it is one of my favorite tracks. Maybe my favorite. It's one of the first tracks I've ever driven on. Well, keyboard. I used the keyboard for it, but somehow managed to make my way through.
Okay, let's just ignore what Grau just said there, right just then. I can't believe he just mentioned keyboard.
I was, like 14 years old.
There is no excuse for using a keyboard on a simulator game. Just no excuse. And I'm sure everybody here will back me up on that. Guitar Hero controller, maybe. But
oh, that's where we draw the line. That's my bad. I should have learned. I should have gotten myself a Guitar Hero controller.
Nah, drive with an O2 tablet, bro.
The best way is definitely by taking a mouse and steering with it.
Beautiful.
Wait, steering with the mouse? Wait, what? Explain this one. What?
Have you not seen the tech that comes with it?
I thought the mouse is actually the accelerator. The more you push it forward, the more acceleration you do. The more you pull it back, the more braking you do.
Yeah, the problem with that is that if you drop your mouse, you might ram into the back of someone.
Oh, I've had a brake failure.
Oh, no.
What does the mouse even operate? I forget.
Oh dear.
Look around, I suppose.
From what I know, it should be looking around or just navigating the menus. But
the best way of playing a racing game is like you do on real racing. With the tablet, just tilt the tablet. There you go. That's
peak though. That's when they play a peak racing game. Yeah, exactly. Ignore how kind of like a Assetto Corsa, if you crash into the wall, the physics just bug out and don't work properly.
A bit like those killer barriers on F1 that they used to have, and when you hit it, it just decided to glitch out like mad, and then any time you touch the barrier, it just teleports you to oblivion. Teleports you to eclipseness.
Okay.
Well, there was also
things, right?
Well, we count it from everyone.
Oh god.
But eclipsing that fact,
Raoul's got a chart and he's going to tell us at the end of the stream.
That was an extreme stretch, Raul. Come
It was
on.
an extreme stretch, but as we can see, the eclipse is also stretching its way to different parts of the world, so it's worth it.
I'm currently looking out my window and can see it is very much getting darker. If anyone's interested in that fact, I'm sure
For
no
some
one
reason,
is.
it's not here in London.
Well, I'm trying to get my camera out just to see, because if I look out my window, I can definitely see it. But so far, it is getting darker. It is getting darker. That means track temps will be going down. Maybe not in Brazil, but here in the UK, track temps would be going down. I hope.
Yippee! How does track temps help us? I only care about air temperature, bro.
Well, track temps, faster lap times, your tires don't overheat, your car doesn't overheat, the driver itself doesn't overheat.
I tell you what, I back that up after spending a very warm weekend at Cadwell Park. That was killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with an open top, these temperatures are not easy.
You also had an open hood, if I remember that correctly.
Okay, let's not get bogged down on what modifications happened with my car.
Well, taking off the hood means better cooling systems. That should be an upgrade.
Ejecto bonito, that they say.
I mean, less weight, bro.
Yeah, weight reduction.
Ejecto bonito. But you also get more drag without a bonnet, so let's just leave it at that one.
As soon as you tuck into that slipstream, that drag doesn't really matter.
Can get close enough for a slipstream, unfortunately. Anyway, let's move on swiftly as qualifying is coming closer and closer. As don't know what quite is going on here, but my screen's gone a bit funny. I can still see what's going on, but yeah.
Well, the timer still hasn't moved. I think even the timer is watching the eclipse at the moment, but let's see if our producer is done with the sightseeing.
All I can do is sigh at this point, Ralph. Like,
yeah,
Well-
I think anyone that's watching the stream right now is probably doing the same. All of the one watching at the moment, that's me.
that's because of Ralph.
Raul has scared them all off.
Well, I'd say they're too busy at the moment watching a very beautiful natural phenomenon. And it is still getting darker,
It is very much so.
as I am slowly not starting to see anything inside my room.
Do you live in the darkness, do you, Raul?
Yes,
Do
I
you
do
have
like-
light?
What's light? I'm not too aware of that.
Does your
word.
screen not produce anything?
Raul is technically a vampire right now, guys, just if you wasn't aware. That's why he wanted to go out and watch the eclipse, because it's the only time he can go outside during daylight hours.
Has the eclipse made you colorblind, Ralph?
At the moment, not quite, not just yet. I can look out my window and still see the sun, so I'm gonna stare at it.
Hey, yo, car on track?
Oh, we see some movement in the.
And yet,
pit
auto
lane.
camera decides to still watch. Ah!
Well,
It's just very much obsessed with watching John after his big shunt when he got distracted by a sun going behind a moon.
yeah, we also see the sector times from John. Nothing sector 1. I don't know how he's managed that. Nothing sector 2. And a purple sector 3 with a 15-minute lap time approaching 16. That's what you call a hot lap.
Just a little bit. I mean, it was definitely hot once he crashed into that wall. I have heard that the main race is... They've changed the settings around a few times. They tried 15 degrees to end off the race, but they was having too many issues, so they did change it over to 18 degrees ending temperature, which will mean it would stay about the same temperature for the ending phase. as the tyres were getting a little bit too cold for this track here. But right now, still with only 4 cars with the Eclipse going on. Hopefully we get like a random scatter of a couple extra cars, but still got a little bit of a wait, it seems, until we get on into that qualifying session, unfortunately, with maybe a bit of a delay due to the Eclipse.
Almost as many commentators as there are cars on track. That is interesting indeed. Let's all pick a car and stick on it.
Oh, fair play. Okay.
All right, so I'm betting on John.
We're not betting on anyone. It's just who we commentate on.
No, we're betting now.
Oh God!
We're betting who has to burn their iron.
Let's not.
Who's gonna stare into the sun the longest?
We are not condoning bet culture, everybody. We are not condoning any bet culture.
It's just good fun banter between friends. Do not bet online. They are there to take your money, and do not do it.
As we can hear, I did just hear a car on track, but unfortunately we cannot see it because our producer is not here. He's trying to ditch us for
the Eclipse.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, at the moment, I did have my phone out and was doing quite a bit of recording because luckily enough my window is directly in the direction of that sun, so
directly in the direction.
Yeah, if it wasn't said well enough, then that should give it, just that meaning. I am losing my words.
Oh, well done. This is the quality commentary you get from Ralph here at
yes.
BUSR.
Yeah, my talent has been eclipsed. So
yay, brother.
The quality insights from Raul Lagla. Quality insight.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we are still waiting on Meet the Producer. He is meeting the Eclipse at the moment. So.
Oh dear!
Instead of talking about eclipses, if we are going to have a little bit of a stall out, you guys, I feel, are very adept to talk about how AC ended up happening on Monday and ramping up that championship.
Oh no.
I know it wasn't so great for you, Raul.
Go on, Raul. You go first. Losers first.
Yeah. Let's start off with the losers with a very lonely P9 and P10, I think, or P9, P9.
Top 10s, it's fine.
Don't quite remember. Mainly fighting for the P3 championship, but it was a job well done. Well, job done well enough. So managed to squeak by with 4 points of a gap, but yeah, it was scary calculating those points. I know Sparrow had a scare as well with the point system, so go on.
A scare with a point system? I don't know what you mean. Well, we were fighting for the team's championship, which I think is still up in the air with a little bit of, judicials happening as we speak. But got a second and a third. There was a point I do remember, Al, when I was in behind you as we came into Vale, and you decided, it looked like you jumped out my way, but it very quite clearly is you couldn't control the car. The rear stepped out and just literally the gap opened up through the middle of Vale and Club Corner.
That was me not fighting you guys for the championship. It was clear who I was rooting for. Maybe not really, but maybe a lack of talent there.
Just a slight lack of talent.
Just a slight lack of talent, I do suffer from this illness called LOT.
I mean,
talent.
Adam, you definitely didn't lack in talent in terms of defending in that one race, though. That was mightily impressive to say the very least, and keeping it fairly on the track limits was very fun to watch.
Oh, I absolutely enjoyed that one. It was a good fun, taking out how much of an animal I can be out on track, as the camera then decides to switch between itself and another car. Oh, it's end of practice. But yeah, I do like myself a good race, and it is a lot of fun just to get the elbows out and show everyone how wide you can make a Toyota 86. Something's going on. I don't know what, but
I just
there you go.
realised I'm dumb. LMU, our producer has convinced us all that LMU stopped at 10 past because that's what he had left off on the screen. Fun thing about LMU, doesn't start at 10 past.
So
Starts
we've
at half
been
past.
lied to.
Fun fact,
So-
as the practice session timer did change over, we start at half past for quali normally, and we all debated ourselves. So we're gonna thank our lovely sponsors real quick: Simply Race, Grid Finder, and I can't think of any offers for this one. I can't lie, it's forgetting me, so I'm just gonna stall until it hopefully switches over.
Grid Finder.
More practice.
Welcome back, everybody, to LMU. Ready for some more practice. Still, I think only 4 cars in the lobby, but hopefully we'll see a bit more of a grid. 6 people now in this practice session.
Let's go.
Very interesting. We still don't have our championship leader and Kirev, who is currently 3rd place in the standings. So
It looks like Oliver is out on track, so come on, producer, pick up where we are, because Oliver looks like they are out on track in the Aston Martin. There they are on their outlap, I believe, or maybe even a flying as they come through this couple of corners to start a flying lap.
Actually getting to see a flying lap then potentially as we ride on board with Oliver in the Aston Martin car that has plenty of grunt in terms of power, but this truck car can be a little bit lacking in overall corner performance and has a bit of drag, even though it does have a decent amount of grunt in terms of its raw engine power. Chucking it into the first of the Senna S's then, a little bit far away from the apex, but a nice little clip on the second one will set them up for this long left-hander, which in a GT car seems like it's almost endless in terms of duration as we do pout it down the main straight. This Aston Martin is going to gain most of its time here. You see them up 2/10 on the dashboard at the moment, chucking it in again. This track's now going to have a little bit of an elevation change, so that engine power again is going to be a little bit more handy than having that overall straight line aero. Finding another 2/10 through that double left-hander before we attack the long sweeping right up-hander. You want to get a little bit of early braking on, feather the throttle through the corner before reaching this apexing of the right-hander, but clipping the curb just a little bit too much with a little bit too much action on the steering wheel will make this second left-hander a little bit more difficult, but then they're going to have to find the nice little bit of a braking point there. That corner is always kind of difficult to find as you're trying to brake while still having a little bit of steering lock to try and get that rotation in with the brake pressure, and then it's an easy left-hander, but you just have to make sure you're modulating the throttle correctly. You can see where this Aston Martin is losing some of the time compared to where the other cars are, just struggling through this cornering section. But then we get onto this long curve straight that is full throttle all the way to the line, using the entirety of the track limits and then some as we round through this left. It's going to be across the line, up by 2/10 on the dashboard, and we'll take first place over Binder for now.
A lovely little bit of a lap there from the Aston Martin driver. Decides to go straight back to the pit lane. Also got one other car out on track at the moment as the Porsche heads into the middle sector. Lovely bit of a livery there. The red, white, and blue.
I think that's the no livery, foul livery.
I'm
Oh.
pretty sure that's the no DLC livery, actually, because they are driving Lamborghinis, based on the top left. Mike and Bonset.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not attempting the name because I will get it wrong. But yeah, two Lamborghini drivers who seemingly have changed to the Porsche by the game.
Eek. Who wants to have a go at saying this name? I mean, I know Raul doesn't. Alan, do you want to have a try? The F1, I don't think it can get much worse.
Bonds. No, I don't want to have a go at that because I will mess that up royally. Apologies, guys.
I'm just gonna say, right, it's Bonstetter. I'm not going to complain. Oh my god. Okay, I can't even basic English.
As you can see, guys, we are trying our best with the name. I think I'm gonna stick to Bon. I quite like that name that way.
We could ask our producer, what's your input on this name?
Our producer stays very quiet. So I've got to say, this is an interesting camera angle because you only see half the track because they close up to another car out in front of them, which is apparently also in a Lamborghini, but very much looks like a Porsche, as they now head onto the main straight. As you can see, the grooves in the tarmac, which is obviously to try and funnel any water, any moisture off the racing line to stop the all dangerous aquaplaning. But finishing a lap, they are just now and is in fourth place at the moment. But yeah, the Lamborghini driver it quite clearly looks like they're in a Porsche. Don't know if they'll be happy with that on the medium tyres with about 82% battery as well. Quite new to this LMU stuff, but there we go.
Yeah, so, at the moment, that is the virtual energy that we are showing right now on the top left. So
we love virtual energy.
Virtual energy is essentially a fuel tank, but it's not exactly what's the amount that's in their car. So they can fuel over that amount of 100%, but it's kind of a way to track it so that each car has a specific amount of liters that they can put on, despite having different fuel tank amounts in the car.
So the reason why it exists is because of hypercars. Obviously, with the hypercars, some cars have the ERS system, some cars have no ERS system, and what determines when they need to pit typically ends up being them running out of energy store remaining, as the current energy store systems that they run in hypercars don't actually regen as much as they need to sustain for the full duration of the race, especially for the longer races. So the energy store is when they need to come in to top up the energy, and then they pit for fuel on top of that. But you will sometimes see them be able to quick fuel in comparison. But it's also a little bit of a balanced performance. Obviously, sometimes it's kind of hard to balance the performance of all the cars through aero restrictions alone, with every single car in Le Mans and WEC being able to use completely free designs rather than having a base design, so kind of like F1 where they all have very strict parameters. They're so open that the balance of performance keeps everyone in check, and it's just an extra way of adding on top. But to keep it consistent between the two categories, they also added it into the GT3 cars. Although they don't have an energy system, they still use it to help with the balance of performance overall. Yeah, as I feel my commentators have fallen asleep.
I am suffering from some technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi decided to join the eclipse and blow up as well. So.
Oh, great.
No, I
Love
think my
to see that.
my Wi-Fi is watching it at the moment, but yeah, keep going. As we
And okay, one really has trouble coming out of that corner. It seems like I'm going to be a little bit lonely. Both of my commentators seem to be having a little bit of issues, unfortunately, but better to get them out of the way now as we have 5 minutes left to practice, as we have a bunch of drivers joining us after the eclipse. McEwen joins into the lobby, and Galaraze, which is somehow a name that is worse to say than Bodstetter, also joins in, but McEwen does have a disqualification, so it will just be 7 cars. We did see someone else join into the lobby for a period of time, but they weren't there in the long run. So at the moment, 7 GT3 cars in the lobby with 5 minutes remaining. It's going to be a little bit more interesting if we do have this many cars. Bonstetter will potentially return to pit lane, stopping on track as Viney comes out in the Proton Racing Ford, which is also in the Porsche livery because we joined the lobby so early, and the game loves sometimes not refreshing their liveries. Though this bug sometimes can occur when people are using their own custom liveries or using liveries from DLC packs, but also just if you're in the lobby in practice, it doesn't automatically always keep refreshing the liveries if you're there first. So if you're wondering why we're seeing the default Porsche liveries, is because we've been in the lobby before the Giant Officers joined, and it hasn't refreshed the liveries on our screen.
Basically because our producer wanted to watch a solar eclipse.
Basically.
I am back, ladies and gentlemen. I had some technical difficulties where one of my screens wasn't working, but they are both working now, so I can look at the stream at in its wholeness, as on looking like they are attacking in the last couple of corners is our Ford. Is it a Ford Mustang? I'm guessing so. Yes,
I wish the Ford GT was in the game, but too old.
But very much odd-looking Ford Mustang goes to start their lap into the Senna S4 another time. 3 minutes to go left in this session as we now go on board, swinging through the Senna S. A bit of a miss of the apex. Going to use loads of curb on this right-hand side and then runs it to the exit curb. Now coming onto this back straight towards turn number 4. Up through the gears, up into 5th, and then will be up into 6th in a second. No, yeah, just up to 6th, down a couple of gears, down into 2nd gear, clipping the apex on the inside there, running all the way to the exit curve, and now going to be straight lining it now towards this double right-hander. It'll be a double apex right-hander. Braking hard again, down a couple of gears, down into 3rd, hitting that first apex, then swinging around to hit the 2nd apex, nicely on the power here, and then trying to brake in a straight line as we now get into the technical section. Down a 1st gear, be easy on the power, don't let the car slide round on you. And now going through the double left-hander, back on the front here, up to 2nd, up to 3rd, as they're now going to be dropping back down into 1st gear. Got to be very careful not to lose the car under brakes, and then back on the front power again, not losing the rear, and then being very, very easy on the throttle, just a little bit of a lift, just to keep the nose tucked in, and now into the last proper corner, and then it's now going to be all the way flat out to the line, keeping it nice and straight to finish their lap in the Ford Mustang. And will this move them up in practice at all, or will this be an improvement? Let's see what happens as they cross the line. And it is a 139.058 to finish the lap with 1 minute 16 left on the clock.
I love the energy coming out for the Ford, as it is going to be a 7-car lobby with 2 people disqualified due to race conduct in previous rounds and the bronze safety rating system that we run. Everyone has to be at least of a certain safety rating in this league, as we have seen some unfortunate racing quality in previous rounds, so we are just putting that in as a little bit of a stricter racing quality assurance for everyone else, so that no one gets unfortunately taken out. But it does seem like we are getting a few more people into the lobby so far, and the top 4 positions all quite close, with roughly 6/10 splitting the 4 of them at the moment. Great to see that we actually do have a bit of competition in the winding phases here of practice. it does seem like our fellow commentator Rao might also be back with us as well.
Yeah, so I've finally sorted out the issues as we head on towards the end of this practice, barely making it on time as we watch Viney navigate this track, get that good little bit of practice navigating the off track as well.
That's the F1 2010
that is
line,
the
isn't
F1 line, yes.
This is
That
the F1
is
2010
indeed
line.
the F1 line. Maybe it will work, we shall see, but a little bit too much
I think
drifting
so.
onto the grass. But yeah, that's definitely lap over.
F1 2010 line coming out in clutch there. As
Yeah, I get to be separate. Good luck with that, you guys.
God, that's an old image of me there.
It's the one in your profile picture, bro.
Yeah, I know.
That is a
But
very
we-
interesting picture for me as well. I have no idea how Meet the Producers got in this image, but
I wonder.
guess.
I wonder, Ralph. Where from?
Well,
So
it's
we get
glad to
ready.
have our producer back.
We get ready for qualifying, shall we? Be nice to
A
see
very
a
loud helicopter.
helicopter.
We are hearing the cars fire up as
20 minutes of
mainly
qualifying
GT3
begins.
cars. So no split qualifying this time.
I don't know. Are we
also
just
don't
going to do
have
10
faith.
minutes and GGs? Like, what?
Yep. So
Hey, might
the
as well
GTs are getting 20
give them
minutes.
the full reign of this qualifying session. And you guys have watched this championship more than I have. Who's your tip to stick it on pole position?
Well,
Ooh.
for me, one name that I would go for would be John Binder, as he is second in the point standing at this moment and has also shown some great pace in that McLaren. Although, from what I know, he's been trying to switch to a little bit more prototype driving, so maybe practice is not really being done in the GT3s, but he's still got raw pace. Some mistakes here and there, but the pace is still there.
I mean, Oliver was fastest in practice, so we'll see if that also goes through. But Kieran, do you want to take us through a lap for the first person out on a lap?
As we'll ride on board with the Manti Pro Racing Porsche, driven by Galarazzi. He's going to try and get into these top points paying positions. The 7 drivers overall on track. He's going to be wanting to put this Porsche on that front row, but has a clear open track in front of him with everyone else sharing the same piece of tarmac. He will attack the first of the center S's, try and get it straightened out, but overrides that curve just a little bit on this first lap. He's going to then tuck over that curb, furthermore shifting into 4th, into 5th gear. Once you come out onto this straight, you're then going to push the revs all the way down the straight as much as you can, reaching 150 before heavily braking down. Going a little bit wide of the apex is going to leave him a little bit stranded on that exit curb as he runs through the left-hand kink before reaching this uphill crest. That is a slow little tap of the brake in, try and get it to get round before it re-loosens up and get back onto the throttle very quickly before hitting all the way down to the first gear. This corner is really slow here in these GT3 cars, and you need to get it far over to the right so that you can optimize the exit here. Once again, going up the hill, having every little bit of time on the throttle can gain you so much extra time as you wind back through this left-hander. You can see how aggressive on the steering wheel he gets to try and get that front end pointed through that left to keep as much minimum speed as you can as he drops it down just to about 60 miles an hour in second gear through the final main braking point of the circuit as the rest of this lap is full of throttle all the way to the end. It's solid so far. He was obviously going to have the purple secators being the first on the track, but what's the benchmark going to be as he cuts the corner as tight as he can to shorten the distance? It's going to be a 1:36.3 as a provisional time. Can anyone else respond as we switch back to Oliver, who hasn't got a better personal first sector than Galatasaray and has a Ford right on their backside, who will have a lot of grid power and have a handy slipstream as well.
Yeah, one thing to take note as well during this qualifying session, as these cars don't have tire warmers, tire blankets, so their tires are going to be ice cold for their first few laps. So they're definitely setting up their banker times at the moment, but we shall see later on as the track does get better. The track evolution does kick in later on, especially now that they do have the full 20 minutes of qualifying, so the times should start to go down later on.
As we see a couple more times trickling on in at the moment, we see Maitland slotting into provisional P3 at the moment, ahead of that Ford, just 1.2 seconds off of the pace of the two front-running Porsches, who are pace setters at the moment in the 136s, but 4 temps splits the two of them as we ride on board with Bonstetter. The second of the final two cars to set a lap at the moment will cross the line in that Lamborghini, slot into P number 5 with a 1:40. Plenty of time left on the track to potentially improve as Galatasaray finds more time in the middle sector but loses a heavy amount in that first, potentially making a crucial mistake. So it's all on that final sector, but they don't really find a massive improvement.
Yeah, at the moment it seems like it is a Porsche domination from Galatasaray and Costa with a 1, 2, and 4 tenths to separate, as Costa has a purple sector 1 with an 8-tenth improvement. That potentially could give him pole position, as we see another self-improvement in the second sector, 5 tenths. Purple once again. Is Costa gonna be able to take away the pole position lap time from Galatasaray?
Someone takes away that first purple sector back away from Costa, but they do respond in kind with that middle sector. It's all going to be on the lay on this last one, and it's slower by 2 tenths, but it's quick enough overall to take P1 by 5 tenths to a second over Galaras's previous best lap time. But they find even more tenth time over themselves, 8 tenths up on their first best sector. And overall purple in the session. It's 7 tenths the difference to Costa. And we saw on that previous lap that their first sector was definitely a weak point. Can they match what Costa did in the middle sector? Yes, they do, even finding maybe a bit more of an improvement on top of that. Again, these two Porsche drivers really finding the pace here on the track. Getting some of that tyre temp into these cars is seeming to pay dividends at the moment as we're approaching 13 minutes left. And again, it's this last sector. It's not got the most technicality, but it's going to be crucial to define the difference. And we find a 1:34.8 from Galatasaray, finding 7 tenths over Costa after being 7 tenths down, as we switch back to the Ford, who's 6 tenths up in the first and is looking to find some more time to try and push into the top 3 and displace Bonstetter on the current provisional podium positions for the qualifying order, and finds him 2 tenths more in that middle sector, but will have to find a lot more in this last and use that power in the engine.
Yeah, at the moment, Viney is gonna be able to set pretty quick lap time and displaces Bonstetter, and Oliver also displacing Bonstetter as they both move up 3rd and 4th respectively. But at the moment, Galatasaray finding more time in that sector 1 that he improved on by 8 tenths already last lap out, and he's found 300s in that first sector, so still improving overall for these drivers. So maybe that's the tires starting to heat up, starting to get some grip as we watch Galatasaray round out the final proper corner, as there is another improvement of 3 tenths, as he did run a little bit wide, so maybe track limits will come into play. But if he does get this lap going, then it will be quite an improvement and definitely gonna set the pace, as he's lost time but still improves. So the gap grows to 1 second now for Galarazzi, and Bonstetter has moved up to 2nd place.
We get a yellow flag in sector number 1 as we do see on the track map someone has ended up being stopped just entering the center S's, which is going to impede some people's lap. But Costa is on another flying lap, down in the 1st sector, up 2 tenths in the 2nd, falling down to 4th place overall. Will now need to try and find some kind of improvement as we see Bonstetter actually going completely off of the track after only slightly being down in the 1st sector. Will now have to maybe come into the pit lane or at least find another lap after making a crucial mistake at this point. But we do see Costa able to improve their lap time, but just barely, having 2 yellow sectors and able to jump within 5 tenths of Galarazzi and put themselves in a comfortable 2nd position as for now, as John Binder is currently on a bit of a slow lap, potentially cooling down the car a little bit.
Yeah, Bender is in 4th place, so he has set some lap times, but still just waiting for maybe a little bit more track evolution or just resetting the mentals to see if they can go for another lap as we watch Finey down on the 1st sector. But this is one of the crucial parts of this track. Just if you get the technical part correct, you are bound to gain a lot of time as you do fight the car here for mechanical grip rather than its aerodynamic grip. So the tires, the suspension is your main factors here. Even the brakes is one of the factors for this part of the lap. So 2 tenths down on the 1st sector as we wait to see if there is an improvement as they round out the final corner a little bit wider, a little bit on the grass, and that is 8 tenths down from their personal best. And they are rounding out this final front straight. Maybe slight improvement, but I don't think it's gonna change any timings at the moment.
Yeah, not really finding any more time on the track as we see a bunch of people coming into the pit lane. Without the LMP cars on the grid, they might be able to get just a little bit more time overall, but at the moment, their tyre wear will eventually kick in, so even if they do have this extra time, they're going to have to rewarm their tyres on a new set because they're not going to have all of the time to keep attacking on that set of tyres, as it will eventually hit a point where the tyre wear will outset the tyre heat differential, and it seems like we have partly reached that point with a bunch of people coming into the pit lane and now going on their outlaps once again, potentially with a fresh new set of tyres to try and attack for this pole position that right now is very comfortably in the hands of Galarazzi.
Yeah, Galarazzi setting a blistering lap time at the first half of this qualifying session, showing up with purple sectors all around, but Costa is also there, not too far behind, just a couple of tenths or around 9 tenths actually, potentially, as we don't see the gap at the moment. Never mind, it is 4 tenths. So Bonstetter as well, very close. So the top 3 covered by less than 6 tenths. So we shall see if anyone else can improve and get closer.
Right now, it's got a decent bit of gap between everyone, about 3 tenths, splitting most people across the field, having an average field spread between each driver very similar to each other, with P3 being the real closeness between everyone in this session at the moment. But it's going to go back and forth with Costa, who 8 tenths down in that first sector. You can see just the lack of grip coming out of these cars with such cold tires underneath them. It's going to be hard to match the lap times they were able to be doing until they've done at least a couple laps, just to get some tire heat back in the car, as fighting away at the wheel is Costa, trying to get as much grip as he can out of what is actually there and left available to him.
Yeah, very similar driving styles from our Porsche drivers, or most of our drivers, really fighting the car very hard during this sector right here, sector number 2. It will help your tires heat up, but if you do steer too much, then you might over scrub the front and potentially cause some overheating problems. So it is a balance. So Costa not finding time at the moment, as Costa will definitely try to get an improvement and see if they can steal that pole position lap from Galurazi.
Gonna be a difficult. Oh.
Apologies, I am back now. One thing you've got to also put in mind is the Porsches are that mid-engine car, so they are just by definition a lot more sort of edgy, a lot more oversteery. Carry on with what you were saying, Kieran.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to be a very tough task for Costa to try and offset the difference between them and Galurazi, but they're running really low on fuel, really low on energy. They're going to just try and get these tyres in the window as quickly as possible and just go for one more lap, it seems. Unlike in that first stint where they fueled up quite heavily, they're really going to put all of the marbles onto this final chance to try and take pole. But that's going to mean if they make any kind of mistake, that's going to be so much more impactful, as they probably won't have enough to go at it once again, whereas everyone else on the track do seem to fuel up a bit more, as we're seeing it still quite hard on a fresh set of tyres to really get racy and find that pace in the track with this Iron Dames Lamborghini.
Yeah, the Lamborghini. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The Lamborghini, again, very oversteer, that mid-engine car, a lot of oversteer on the exit there, and that's surely not going to be an improvement for their lap time. But it's you've got here as well, you've got the other rear-engine car or mid-engine car of Binder as well in fourth place, not too far away from that third place. I think it was less than a tenth of a second as this Porsche heads towards the line to complete another lap. Is there an improvement? No, there is not.
Yeah, it just looks like Costa had invalidated somewhere in Sector 2, so they are definitely in for a reset as they try to go on once again, as Bonstetter very slidey, very wide, spinning onto the gravel out in turn number 4. Yeah, definitely Sparrow was correct with the oversteering factor of the Lamborghini.
Looking at the current order, the overall gap to Galurazi is quite wide across the overall field spread here today in the GT3s, and these Porsches seem to be feeling really good at this track. Same with all of the rest of the mid-engine cars. The two grunt horsepower cars in the Aston and the Ford seem to be struggling just a little bit more compared to these cars, but have a little bit more downforce on their side through balance of performance and generically through car setup. So it's going to be down to everyone who can find that grip where the downforce allows to really determine what happens in this race. But hopefully maybe going into the main race where that overall peak performance isn't so crucial, having that top end speed can at least make the Aston Martin and Ford a bit more racy overall in the race conditions. But we're still seeing from Costa that they're still down, especially in that middle sector where that tyre grip really will show.
I think certainly that extra little bit of, I think certainly the Porsche, I feel like it's quite a nimble, quite agile car, and certainly in that middle sector, the Porsche should find that little bit of an advantage with just got such a short wheelbase, and the short wheelbase vehicle just changes direction so much better than something with a longer wheelbase. But the other thing you've got to keep in mind as well is, if they are just consistently soaring at the wheel, as getting out the way is the Lamborghini there of the Porsche that is there in setting a lap in second place. An improvement in the first sector by 300 a second, but they lose the rear mid-corner, and that is the end of that lap. And they've got surely one more chance to try and improve and challenge for provisional pole position.
Yeah, at the moment it looks like everybody has gone into the pits. Is that their qualifying session done, or is there anyone who's going to attempt to go out on track for another run?
Not really much time left in the session to go out and get heat on the tyres if you are going to be in a position where you have to switch tyres or even just reheat up the tyres in the first place. So with no one out of the pit lane right now, it does seem like it's unfortunately going to be unable for anyone to find the lap time improvement, and they don't want to be using up too many tyres, as we do still run higher wear rate so they still go through a couple of sets, sometimes at higher wearing tracks.
Yeah, so it looks like it is going to be a front row of Porsches, which does not surprise me around here. The number 91 and the number 90 will be locking out the front row with just under half a second between the pair, and they both have over half a second on the rest of the field, where it gets quite close actually, with Boniesta, is that Bonstetter? Bonstetter and Binder within a tenth of a second between the two of them, and Oliver only 0.2 of a second behind Binder. So it is very, very close from that third place backwards. But yeah, shame we haven't got a bit of a crescendo end to the qualifying session.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was a longer session, so maybe the drivers had figured out that they weren't going to improve anymore and just decided to cut qualifying short and save their tires for the main race itself.
Potentially that tyre saving, like you said, Kieran, was the main factor on people just deciding to just call it a session.
Yeah, looking at the race though, in terms of strategy overall, we always see about 2 stops here, as the fuel doesn't really allow them to stretch it that way. With the 2 times wear overall, this will be a pretty long distance to try and drag these tires every single stint as well. But sometimes we see that they do just 1 tire change, sometimes we've seen 2, and we've also seen 1 set of tire changes. But I think the most crucial race in terms of fuel so far this season we've seen, just like last season, was at Monza, where people were on a fuel push at the end, just trying to save when they didn't fuel fully on that second pit stop, or maybe even being pushed into Rome of having to do 3 stops. Be interesting to see here at Brazil if that's going to be a case, but they should have enough places to lift and coast that won't be an issue today.
Yeah, Sector 2 is definitely looking like the place where they would be able to save quite a bit of fuel. You do still have to deal with the very long front straight and that back straight that's also near the front, so quite funnily enough called the back straight. So yeah, definitely some tire saving gonna be the main thing once again. Oh, sorry, not tire saving, fuel saving is gonna be the main part of this race.
Fuel saving, yeah, it always puts a bit of a makes it sort of the efficiency of how drivers can save fuel is really a racecraft that some people do. That is why I don't do endurance racing, because yeah, I can't be bothered to do all that stuff. I don't know about you guys in your previous lots of racing, but I can't be bothered to fuel save.
Yeah, definitely got that that person in my ear just telling me to push and push every single lap, and maybe that's why I spin out during my races. But yeah, nonetheless, fuel saving is one thing that these endurance drivers will be working on, and tire saving for this track actually.
That's why you always seem to bottle it sometimes, Raul, when you're in a good position out in AC. Just decides to, oh, I'm just going to push 100%, and then, I'm now off the track.
Just definitely finding the limits.
Raul, have you just not learnt just to pull it back that 5%? Because actually pushing that 105% isn't actually that fast.
Yeah, been trying that all season, so I will be definitely looking forward to the next season, as I was mainly working on racecraft this year. Oh well, this season, not year.
I couldn't tell. Sorry. Oh, had to sneak it in there.
That's fine. I do still have my win, so I will be lifting that up high.
Wait, you won a race? What?
He did win a race. He won the reverse grid round Autopolis.
Yeah,
that is surprising after seeing how easily you dropped through the grid at Silverstone.
We don't talk about that one. That was me pushing 60%.
Let's not get bogged down on what happened to Raul in race 2.
Bogged down, I did do. But back to the action, we do have a little bit over 30 seconds left as we watch the standings. Who is showing the wrong drivers at the grid at the moment? But yeah, Galurazi pole position in this GT3 class field race. So Costa rounding out the top 2 as well. Bonstetzer in the Lamborghini in the second row, 3rd place, and Binder in the McLaren, 4th place. Oliver in the Aston Martin out in 5th place, 3rd row, with the other front engine car of the Ford Mustang of Viney. And Mike is rounding out the top 7.
Now we get ready for the start as they start to roll towards the start line here at Interlagos in Sao Paulo, as they all just start to head down this lengthy straight, or well, it's not exactly straight, maybe we should call it the isn't straight to throw back to the Grand Tour, but they all now start to line up, and who is going to get the best start here?
Well, this is going to be a crucial start to the race for all of these drivers. They need to make sure that it's going to be clean, as this is a quite long race. LMU definitely the longest races on the BUSR weekly calendar, so this is where it matters. If you want to be able to win this race, a lot of it still is weighed early on here, so it's going to be crucial to get that good starting, and it's all on Galarazi to choose when they go, as the lights will hold until the call is made, and Galarazi will hold on that inside line, but Costa's going to have to be careful of that Lamborghini on the inside line, taking a long sweeper, but actually he's going to be finding the ball, going a little bit too late, and actually completely clipping off the tire of Galarazi, the race favourite, getting taken out by the Ford, who ends up taking it way too aggressive into turn number 1 and collects them, locking up the front tyres, which leaves Costa to pull cleanly away. And we're still seeing Bonstetzer having to try and defend between the 4 cars behind, and at the moment Oliver's going to try and not come out the worst, but is going to get pinched in by that second Lamborghini as John pulls in to P at number 2 in front of that second Lamborghini, who are both getting sandwiched in between the black and white livery cars as we head up the hill.
That is absolute calamities for our pole sitter. Is now out of the race. Oh no, they've restarted now. They're still going apparently in 6th. I don't know what's going on there, but Binder has taken 2nd place. Some other drivers might also have some damage, but what a interesting start, and I'm sure there will be something to be said in the steward's office after the race. Now, does Costa start to increase this margin to Binder? They did have the pace in qualifying. How much do these drivers decide now to save their tyres, as we've now gone to the thing, and it was very much that thing of you can't win it in the first corner, but you can definitely lose it, and 2 drivers definitely look like they've lost it here.
Yeah, it just looked like Viney was very late. Well, I'm not even sure if there was some sort of braking there. It looks like it could have been a mechanical failure from Viney's side, but they are now out of this race. But Galurazi looks like they are maintaining to drive around the track and maybe get it into the pit lane to get it repaired. But so far, Binder setting the fastest lap of the race out in 2nd place. Costa with a massive margin of 4 seconds, and slowly dropping as they did make a mistake there on turn 4, running very wide, but they are now back on track as Binder has set their sights on that 1st place man of Costa.
Costa completely pulling away from the rest of the pack in 3rd position, really in a commanding position in that Porsche now. Do you actually see, like, Galarazi is potentially still lapping around the circuit down, but they are trying to make it to the pit lane without a front and right tyre, so it's going to be careful. All of this traffic coming through needs to make sure that they don't collect Galarazi. It does seem that they're all going to get through safely this time around. Hopefully you can get to the pit lane relatively quickly and might even find their way back into this race to some extent with the pace that they had, and at least they've been able to keep it going. I am absolutely flabbergasted at how, but it's good to think they are.
Yeah, very much. fair play to them, the commitment to actually keep going and actually try and make it to keep in the race. And it is a long motor race, anything can happen, as Costa sets the fastest lap with a 1:36.934, and it is 4/10 quicker than Binder. So Binder, that gap is slowly extending. Obviously that gap originally was made out by the incident on the first corner, and Costa managed to stay out of trouble with that. Very, very lucky for them, or maybe some skill involved in that one as well. But we have got quite a bit of a group there, and in the background that looks like Oliver maybe under a little bit of pressure with Matland there in behind in the Lamborghini. That is our closest battle, which is for 4th place. But yeah, it's interesting to see sort of what happened there, and I don't know whether it was a loss in concentration, whether something happened with their rig or what, but yeah, it's not going to be looked upon very kindly at all by the stewards.
Yeah, the stewards definitely gonna have to take some sort of look. Might be a short look, but just unfortunate. But Galurazi have made it into the pit lane. Let's see if they are gonna try to set back out. But there is a penalty as well, just to ruin the day even more, with a drive-through penalty for Galurazi for pit lane misbehavior, maybe speeding into the pit lane, as they have retired now from this race.
Yeah, picking up that drive-through might have just broke the camel's back, as they say, for them, as it's going to put them so far behind that it's going to be almost impossible to pick anything up. But John actually sets fastest lap, clearly not holding anything back at the moment, wants to try and catch up to Costa. They know they've got a long way to go, but the only way to really catch up at this point, with that gap being so large this early on, is to keep pushing at your own pace and figure out what can you manage to muster without completely overburdening your car.
Yeah, the fuel, the virtual energy is definitely one key factor here on this race. Is Binder going to be pushing hard to see if they can close the gap, get into the slipstream, and help them save that energy? Or are they just gonna wait and just do the race at their own pace and see if they can close up to Costa? But it looks like these two drivers are responding to each other with pace, as Costa did set the fastest lap last time round, and now it's Binder who set the fastest lap, and they are still improving on this lap as well. Purple sector 1, as they round out towards the end of this sector 2 to see if they are going to improve and close that gap. But the gap is looking steady there for Costa, as it's a slight improvement, but Costa, a massive improvement in sector 2, 1.2 seconds of an improvement.
I think very much the Porsche is very quick in that middle sector, and Costa is showing that at the moment, as Binder tries to edge in that gap, but it's not going to be enough. I think the Porsche, again, showing that short wheelbase, that agility of that car, where the McLaren has the edge on the top speed and the acceleration, but it's not enough to get the edge on the twist, around the twists and turns of this Interlagos circuit. And yeah, 2/10 quicker the last lap between Costa and Binder. The other thing we've got to also keep in mind is, obviously, most of the contact was between the two drivers that are now retired, but did anyone else get a little bit of damage as well? Because that could quite have easily happened. It was just a bit of a mess, wasn't it?
Yeah, unfortunate. Yep, go on.
Looking at it as an overall point, this isn't going to be a bit of a sprint, and as you said, that damage, if anyone has picked up anything else, will be crucial, as it is also going to play a factor on tyre wear. If you have to burden the cars even further, you might not have that same level of grip as Bonstetter. Right now, not able to keep up with the same level of pace that John is finding when they were so close in qualifying, as you just see that gap slowly eking up to over 2.5 seconds as we head into the first 10 minutes, almost complete, with 2 minutes going for that. But right now, everything seems to be settling into a bit of a rhythm, with Costa clearly leading the way of the 5 GT3s here Interlagos as the conditions will slowly start to get colder, and Costa sets a new fastest lap as that engine starts to breathe.
Yeah, it looks like Costa is setting the pace here now, just slowly eking the gap to Binder, which is now up to 5.5 seconds. But at the same time, these cars are faster in different parts of the circuit, so the gap is not really representative. So you'll see Binder close in during the first and third sector, but that Porsche is just very strong during this middle sector right here where John is at the moment.
Yeah, there's quite clearly advantages and disadvantages with all the cars out on track, but very much everyone's sort of sat in their own rhythm, of which isn't the best for us guys, because we want to see some action and some fights out on track, but we haven't got that at the moment. Everyone's about a second and a bit between them, so we've got an hour and 5 minutes to decide who comes out on top, as again another purple middle sector there from Costa, showing that they've got the speed, they've got the pace. Interesting enough, Binder wasn't quite purple in the first sector, so I wonder who has gone fastest in that first sector, because he did have the purple first sector, but now we know it wasn't Costa. Someone is finding that extra bit of pace as another new fastest lap from the Porsche. What does Binder do in retaliation? That is, again, 2.5 tenths away from his rival, up ahead of him.
Yeah, at the moment, this race has definitely slightly settled down, but we do see a fight here between Bonstetter, who has fallen from the leading two, but Oliver now is having a look on the outside, but thinks better of it and just waits later on. But this Aston Martin very strong in a straight line, so potentially the person with the fastest first sector is Yui Oliver, but they are stuck behind Bonstetter at the moment as they head on to sector 2. Just getting a look as Bonstetter goes very slidey and goes wide. That allows Yui Oliver to have a look on the inside, and which turns into the outside. But Bonstetter is still hanging on. Is Bonstetter gonna be able to close the door? But it looks like Oliver is still there as well, diving very late. It's very late on the brakes, running very wide as Bonstetter did leave the gap and allowed Oliver to stay in the inside and not make any contact.
Yeah, it's going to be quite fierce racing between the two. Oliver actually gets a really good run out of that corner using the Aston Martin's grunt compared to Donstetter, and just cleanly gets on by with a lot more speed out of the corner, even though their line wasn't the cleanest. We are going to see that the area efficiency of Bonstetter will mean once they do get up to speed, the difference isn't quite as drastic, but it's going to be a lot harder for Bonstetter to try and get past Oliver, as right now they're going through the quick part of the circuit in terms of straights, and Oliver is just pulling away, and Bonstetter is really starting to struggle with that car underneath them. When this car is meant to be faster through the corners, you can see why they're starting to lose out some time.
Yeah, it could be potentially the tires also screaming for help, as this Lamborghini is very oversteery, so the rear tires are going to take quite the beating. Mid-engine as well, which should help with traction, but at the same time it does allow for more rotation, and maybe they are suffering from the extra bit of rotation from the mid-engine car compared to Oliver, who had a front-engine vehicle. As we watch on Binder here, has slowly closed the gap to Costa here. It's now down to 4 seconds, but if we look at the battery percentage, Binder also does have a slight advantage of 2%. So the battle for energy here is also going to be quite interesting, but Costa is using quite a bit more energy, but it looks like Costa is losing time to Binder here.
losing nearly 2 seconds just in one single lap time. Costa might have made some kind of mistake as well. The gap between John and Oliver has started to grow quite rapidly. It's really becoming a two-horse race at the front of the grid between John and Costa, and it's good to see that John is slowly winding in that gap to Costa as the tyre wear is starting to set in, saving the fuel just a little bit better in that McLaren, and maybe saving the tyres as well, which is giving some of that pace back over towards them. But seeing Costa down such a large amount in that previous lap, I'm going to also put a little bit of doubt on the fact that that was purely off of pace, and that they do still have a little bit more in the bank as well.
Yeah, Costa definitely pushing the car very hard at the start of this race. Might want to start reeling it down, just try to stay consistent throughout this race, but Binder is slowly start to get the gap down. But this sector 2 is where the Porsche shines and just pulls out 10 after 10. As we see Bonstetter into the wall and out of this race potentially.
Yeah, they've gone to the pit lane and DNF'd as well. That's going to be unfortunate for Bonstetter, who had an issue in practice. We saw him have an issue in qualifying going off as well, and it seems like their pace hasn't been able to find consistency. They keep making a couple of mistakes, and that's led to them deciding to retire from this race, leaving us with 4 cars left remaining. And Costa does seem to have found some time back against John after that poor lap a bit ago.
Yeah, at this moment in time, the drivers have definitely settled down into their own rhythm. Binder looking like he's very strong at the moment, but Costa as well just responding as they pull out another 5/10 and bring the gap back up to 5 seconds. So it's just a battle between these two, who's using more energy, using more tires. So we shall see later on as the time winds down. Less than an hour now into this race, as we should start to see these drivers struggle for tire wear.
Looking over onto the strategy front of things then, as we are getting close to that phase, 40 minutes through 50 minutes, it's usually the window where we see these cars start to take that first pit stop in these races. Try to get them at least a little decent bit in this first one, as we actually see Costa really riding that curb, losing quite a bit of time already down in that first sector. This might be a little bit more of a swing back in John's favor, as we do see that's 8 temps down with that massive mistake from Costa. As you said, maybe having to just wind it back just a little bit, as they're now really starting to push over that edge a few times consistently.
Yeah, John looked like there's also a mistake on their end, as they did run wide on that final proper corner, or penultimate corner as people call it. But Binder definitely also trying to push as they set a purple final sector once again. Not too sure if that was an improvement, but still a purple sector is a purple sector, as the gap just teetering around the edge of that 5-second mark.
Looked like Binder got very, very wide out of that last corner, and potentially, yeah, was faster than Costa in that final sector, but it definitely would have compromised their run, and still not quite as fast as their rival up in front in that last corner. I think they lost about half a second, but from what I could see in that final corner from going that little bit wide, but they are starting to edge it a little bit in. So I think potentially Costa is starting to burn out their rear tyres, because you can just see, look at the time in the top left. It has gone down about 2 or 3 tenths in this middle sector. So Costa is definitely struggling with probably the rear tyres more than likely.
Yeah, it looks like Binder is the one who's being more consistent at this moment in time, maybe making very small mistakes here and there, but they are hanging on to their tires quite better than Costa, it seems like, as Costa's lap times have definitely dropped down, especially during the middle sector, as they are not setting those blistering second sectors like they were at the start of this race.
Binder, although I think, is struggling through that last or penultimate corner, because again they lost some more time. So I'll be interested to see if they're running it slightly too wide, trying to get on the power a little bit too early. Nothing between the two cars on that last lap, but yeah, John Binder seems to be struggling through that penultimate corner.
Obviously, having a key known weak point does at least help you know where you're losing time. But at the moment, the two drivers between Costa and Binder both training a bit of mistakes, which is keeping this gap consistent at 5 seconds, which in previous races we've seen to be way more than enough to actively know to actually find that complete difference in time in the pit stop alone, and we've seen it really be an option. So maybe at the moment John Binder's beneficial energy might actually swing it if they can save time in the pit stops.
Yeah, at the moment it looks like Costa is leaking time here, just a few tenths here and there, especially throughout the second sector, which is where the Porsche was very strong. So there is definitely tire wear involved here, but we do see the wipers moving around, so maybe weather is also coming into play. Is there some drops of rain, but we don't see anything at the moment, as we see both drivers do have their wipers on and going at the moment.
Half a second faster that lap time around from Binder. Didn't lose anything through that last corner or penultimate corner that time around. So I think Binder has started to find their rhythm again through that, and all the gains that they're making around the rest of the lap, then they wasn't losing that time around. So maybe just had to pull it back a little bit, but that time is draining. It's draining between the pair, and a new fastest first sector from John Binder. They have got the bit between their teeth, and they see that blue Porsche up in front and want to catch them down.
Yeah, it looks like weather is starting to come into play here, as if we look at the top of our screens, the weather radar is showing drizzles or light rain icon at the moment, but the temperatures hasn't dropped just yet, so it might be some time. Maybe they are waiting for this rain to settle and then switch their tires, but at the same time we do have to be wary of their fuel at the moment. So this moment in time, Binder is still setting fast lap times, but it looks like there is no sector 2, so it might have been a track cut somewhere. So just gotta be careful with the penalties.
Yeah, at this point, penalties might play a bit of a factor if they're pushing so hard. But the radar does show rain coming in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, with that track temp dropping at the same time. So these drivers are going to still have a lot to deal with on their hands. And as you said, with pushing the energy limit at the moment, you really want to have at least 4 to 5% energy really to be comfortable as you're entering the pit lane. If you don't want to really drop below that no matter what. But we have seen some people able to make laps with 6% battery left overall. So it's going to be interesting to see just how far can they stretch this battery. How many more laps can they get? Costa is probably looking at about 3. John might be on the bubble of getting an extra 1, which if this rain does come in anytime soon, might be crucial for that switchover point.
Yeah, I think that is potentially maybe what John was looking at. John Binder potentially knew that the rain was coming and wanted to make sure that they had enough fuel and energy in hand for when that rain did come. Now that could become crucial, because you don't want to make an extra pit stop. You don't want that to happen, and obviously we don't know how hard this rain is going to come down. But if Costa has to do an extra lap on dry tyres compared to John Binder, then that will really swing the race in that man's favour, as their laps has now sort of started to even out slightly. You can see the gap going down this main straight, and that might also be Costa just doing a little bit of a short shift and just trying to eke the fuel out as much as possible. Yeah,
at the moment Binder does have that 4 to 5% advantage when it comes to the virtual energy. Costa is sitting on 13%, so I doubt that they would be able to make it over to that switch period and maybe have to do a splash and dash as they do go wide once again in that corner. So definitely struggling here for tires or grip at the moment. Costa is, while Binder is just settling into a nice rhythm. So a very interesting battle going on at the moment.
I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but I certainly have noticed when you do try and do that little bit of lift and coast, it's actually a little bit easier to run it a little bit wide, just miss the apexes slightly, because you're not quite using the you're not braking at the point you normally brake. You're losing the rhythm that you have, and you can see through the left-hander there, just a complete lift rather than a feather, which the drivers were doing in qualifying. So we now go on board with John Binder as they try and close down the Costa in front, but the gap has extended on this most recent lap by quite some margin here. So Costa potentially now going for a big push before they go into the pit lane.
Yeah, this timing is definitely on for Costa. Looks like this might be the lap where they're going to push and see if they can make it into the pit lane as fast as possible to go for a little bit of a splash and dash. But we do see on the windscreen there is drops of rain and there is water residue at the moment. So is it time to switch for the wet tires, or is it too early for Costa?
Definitely going to be a tough decision to make, but they are pushing. They are going to be bringing out that gap to John, who right now, as we are looking at the energy, does seem to have that extra lap available to him at the moment, but it will be close for John. They're going to have to try and make this decision on if they do want to go that extra lap. But right now, the sky does not seem to be raining anywhere near enough for that switchover, so it's going to be dangerous either way you call it.
Yeah, it's certainly not wet enough to go on to the wet weather tyres. You're just going to burn them out if you go out in these conditions, and when the rain does eventually fall, the tyres will be no good anyway. So maybe Costa has then thought, right, okay, I'm not going to be able to edge this out. Let's push. Let's get into the pits. Let's do a quick stop, because again, you just don't know how heavy the rain will fall and when it will fall quite heavily, as it looks like Binder is going to try and edge it for another lap. That gap has extended even more so. So I think they are definitely trying to sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought there. They are definitely trying to edge out that extra bit of lap as they go on for another one. Let's see how things turn out here as we go back on board through the Senna S. There's a bit of a miss of the apex through turn number 1, but not harm from that.
Yeah, at the moment, 2 drivers into the pit lane. Costa and Oliver looks like they weren't able to manage to stretch the fuel here, but Binder doing heavy lifts, going wide. As you have mentioned, it is difficult to just switch your rhythm from one way to another, from pushing to saving. So these drivers are definitely also dealing with the weather, as we shall see if any Binder and Mike Maitland would be able to switch on straight to the wet tires. It is a 1 lap difference, but in an endurance race, 1 lap could decide things, especially in the pit stops.
Looking at it then, we do see the Costa and pitting first, but as we go on to this lap, we see that the sun starting to rise out through the clouds in Interlagos, potentially showing that the rain may not be coming down as hard as we might have expected. It does show on the radar that we are on the border of rain, but it seems to be sticking away for now, and that might be what makes the decision to stay on slicks just that little bit easier. But John at least had that extra time to make that decision, and hopefully can maybe compound this into saving time later in the race by not having to pit for as long on that second pit stop if they're able to convert it. But it's going to be important to watch this gap, watch where Costa is on the track, and have they been able to get anything out of these tyres, or is the ambient temperature too cold to really get these tyres switched on this outlap? And is the overcut, sticking on the warmer tyres, going to be beneficial for Binder? And is that gap going to come on down, or is it going to just grow even further as we watch that Lamborghini to see if they come into the pit lane, which they also do, leaving it all 4 people completing that first stop after this lap?
I think with there being a bit of moisture in the air, with obviously the colder temperatures as the day goes on, that the tyres obviously won't be getting up to temperature quite as well. So I would potentially think that they've not quite got the tyres up to temperature, as we have got Binder coming out the pit lane now, but it might have been quite a bit of a blinder first lap there from Costa as they go through the Senna S, and it looks like the gap has potentially extended a little bit, but that also might have been because Binder needed to save a little bit more to make sure they made it back out, as yes, the gap has definitely extended out to about 8 seconds.
Yeah, and now key thing to note is that virtual energy difference now. Costa had to pit 1 lap earlier, so now they're sitting at 92%, while Binder does have a lovely gap of 6% now. So the +1s are definitely starting to reveal itself, as Binder has done his +1. Let's see if Costa will try to save a lot more during this stint. But Yui Oliver here also had to pit with Costa, which means compared to Mike, they will be suffering from less energy at the moment. And looks like the rain is not coming down hard enough, as these drivers are still on their medium slick compound of tires.
Into the slicks will mean that hopefully in this next stint we're going to see a bit of the same trading of pace between Costa and John across the rest of this race, but that gap has widened to quite a sharp extent now, over 9 seconds, as John still has to warm up those tyres, while Costa is really starting to get him into that performance window now that we're settling in to his stint in the middle of this race. The issue though for John overall now is, yes, they have this little bit of energy advantage. Can they extend it by another 6% or so, like they did in that first one, to actually make it a worthwhile addition to save?
Yeah, at the moment, looks like Binder could decide if they can go towards the end of this race, but at the same time, we don't know if any of these drivers have changed their tires. So potentially, if they didn't change their tires, then maybe they could have kept more heat compared to getting new tires, because it will take less time for used tires to get up to their optimal range compared to new tires, as tires that came in with the car would already have had heat in them. So another interesting factor.
But may have actually gone on to their used tyres after their pit stop, because they did seem to get back on the pace quite quickly though. But that would surprise me if that was the case, as much as we did see their pace out the block did seem quite strong, because they were struggling certainly before the pit stops compared to their rival Binder. But that also might have just been down to trying to save that little bit of extra fuel, that little bit of extra energy to make it to that pit stop, as there was obviously that little bit of moisture in the air. But if we look at the lap times at the moment, Binder definitely seems to be struggling that little bit in comparison to Costa. Still hasn't quite got their tyres to the optimum working range. So as we all start to sort of spread out a little bit, yeah, let's see how this race pans out.
Ooh, it's looking very wide for Costa there.
Yeah, obviously with the track getting colder and colder, it might just be down to that temperature in the first place that is really now starting to restrict them in terms of overall speed, as having the colder air will make it harder to get these tyres and harder to keep them in that range once you do get them there. So maybe we're just seeing that this track is maybe just not hot enough in the first place to get the temperatures that they once were getting, that they felt comfortable with, and maybe they're just going through an adjustment period, and it's going to be down to who can adjust better to these cooling conditions. better between the two of them, and if they can maximize the situation they're finding themselves in, as John does seem to be catching up a little bit after that last lap.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. That John looks a lot faster, and I don't know if there's been a mistake there from Costa, because that gap is slightly. Maybe it's just the way the gapped rubber band as they go through some of the corners. Because was that wide there from Binder? Because he's just all of a sudden lost 1 second, so I don't know if he's gone wide through that penultimate corner. I said earlier, didn't I, that that looked like a bit of a problem corner for Binder, so he closes the gap back again on this back straight, but looks like a bit of a rubber banding effect actually between the two drivers, as the gap is obviously a little bit larger.
Yeah, it looks like these drivers do have their own problem corners. Costa coming up to their problem corner, which is turn 4, as we've seen them run wide multiple times in this race. Maybe struggling with the rear end grip or front end grip as well, as they have managed to navigate that corner quite successfully, well, as Binder is also looking very strong in this first part of the track, but it also looks like they are closing the gap, but it could be that rubber banding effect that's giving an illusion of the drivers closing in on each other.
Obviously, we are seeing a little bit of the fact that this track evolution is playing a major factor, but also that this gap is fluctuating, as you said. But right now it does seem to be heading in the favor of John Binder a little bit consistently, but with them actually sharing a decent gap between them, you definitely can see that that will fluctuate a little bit as the car performances lean into different parts of the track and maybe their setups. But Costa seems to be struggling a little bit, as he's lifting quite a lot through that little bit of the lap, which seems to be a real strong point for John. Yes, he's struggling at the very end, but overall he seems to be stronger in that last sector until that one corner where you just see that gap very rapidly rise just from one corner alone.
I don't know if that's just the way that this game decides to or decides where the or how it calculates the gap, because it then, if you get to the end of the straight, you can see the gap massively go down. But if we look at the lap time, 1.1 seconds was the difference between the two drivers, and you can see as well it is surely getting a little bit more little bit wetter out there, because look at the lap times there. We're in the 42s, we're 7 seconds of a lap slower than their best lap times, and look at that from Costa goes wide. From Costa goes wide. It's definitely struggling with the front end of their car, and this is surely, as it's all going to be about how much temperature have these guys able to maintain from these tyres as the rain comes down. Are we going to be able to? Are we going to be seeing as wide again from Costa? This is going to be turning on its head. Costa is really struggling with these slippery conditions, really struggling to keep it on the track, and really struggling with those front temperatures getting too cold.
Yeah, Binder closing the gap there after that series of mistakes from Costa. Well, it was down to 5 seconds, so a 4-second difference, but Costa looks like they are back on track as they are struggling for grip here. The rear end of that portion not looking very stable at the moment, but maybe this is the weather. The rain starting to come in as we see that the sunlight, especially at the end of that second sector, is starting to get darker as we see the headlights turn on. So very interesting development here weather-wise as they now dive into the pits for Costa. Is Binder gonna follow, or are they gonna do one more lap? But it looks like they are also following in, so this is the call to change the tires onto the wets as the rain has fully arrived here in Brazil.
The weather has arrived, and John's going to pit directly behind Costa in the pit lane. We're going to see the rest of the traffic come in, of Oliver and Maitland come in as well, surely, with the weather actually starting to come down properly now in this middle part of the race, adding an extra pit stop into the fray. But also, with this timing, we're surely going to have to see another pit stop after this, because 37 minutes feels like it's too long for these drivers to go on one stop after that first stint.
I think John Binder and Costa were both trying to extend out so they wouldn't need to do a pit stop. You also got to put in bear in mind, obviously, it's different tyres, it's different conditions, and you're not going to be burning quite as much fuel in these conditions because you're not going to be wanting to rev the cars up quite as much. But certainly in the grease conditions on the slick tyres, it looked like Binder had the upper hand. Maybe because that sort of the shorter wheelbase, like I've been explaining earlier, maybe made that car a little bit more of a handful, and you just couldn't lean on the car quite as much as you could do in the dry. And that is the gap, as again, straight out the box there, wide there from Costa, as the gap is 3.5 seconds, so it's the closest it's been since lap 1, after we had obviously the incident on turn 1, lap 1, between our pole sitter Galarazzi and Vinny in the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, at the moment, looks like Binder is the one who is dealing with the current track conditions better, as we have seen a multitude of mistakes from Costa during the last few laps, which allowed Binder to get closer than ever, and now they are within sight of Costa in the Porsche. So definitely gonna help Binder to psychologically really to just see the car in front slowly get larger and larger, as we do see Costa just running very wide, very close to the limits there, as Binder is also trying to push the car to get closer as much as possible. But these drivers still have to be careful with track limits, as they don't want to get penalties really during their laps here.
It'd be very important to keep within track limits. You really see that the rain is starting to pour down now. You can see it on the track, it started to settle as well, so the grip is going to be almost completely gone at this point for these drivers, and it's going to be how much can these tyres find anything, and instead of risking that sliding over the surface, that is going to be the danger point now. But right now it seems like Costa's taken to these conditions more, and a lot of people don't tend to race wet conditions in sim racing, to be fair, and now it's going to be a game of who's actually practiced wet conditions more, and can you get a good use out of it.
Yeah, you could see also, interestingly enough, through the Senna S on the right-hander, both drivers deciding to properly hook over this curb, and then you can see the wider line there from Costa, just to try and get off the rubber a little bit, try and get off the slippery part of the track through the high-speed corner. But it looks reasonably similar between these two drivers. I'd say Costa has a slight advantage over Binder, but there's not too much in it. We will see a full, once these guys complete a full lap, what the difference in lap time is. But again, you just don't know how differently these guys are pushing, how much one is trying to save more than the other. Obviously, we are equal on energy as it stands, but there might be that little bit extra saving that one driver is trying to do, or it might be also trying to hold on to these tyres, because I'm not sure how long these wet tyres will also last in these conditions.
Talking about how much they need to save, the issue is if they don't think that this is the only pit stop they're doing, if they think they need to pit again almost no matter what the conditions end up being at the end, then we're going to hit a situation where all of that time that Binder saving with that extra energy, having better fuel management, is going to be all completely washed by this pit stop, as we already are seeing with them pitting on the same lap. But it will have neutralized already and may just continue to not be a big factor that he was definitely winning in.
Yeah, at the moment, looks like Costa is taking the weather, the consistency now, as they've slowly pulled up a gap up to 6 seconds from 4 seconds in just a couple of laps. So Costa definitely doing better at this moment in time, as that Porsche has been very slidey, but they are maintaining that drift, that slide, and it's working to their advantage compared to Binder.
One thing that you've got to put in mind, though, is Costa did exceed track limits there. You can see that they got no last lap time, and I've seen that a couple of times over the last few laps. I saw this a few times when it started to go towards the end of the previous stint. So you've got to bear in mind that they don't want to extend track too much, because they could get themselves a penalty. They were very, very close there to potentially extending there, and it seemed to have neutralised. I know you said that the lap time was closing, but it seemed to have neutralised a little bit more on this lap. So, yeah, Binder maybe not quite got the pure pace compared to Costa, but hasn't extended like Costa has on that previous lap.
Yeah, it looks like the lap time is still not showing up for us here, so we do not have a representative of who is going quicker in these conditions at the moment, but the gap is remaining about the same now, so maybe Binder is trying to use up some fuel now, as we see slowly the difference in the energy has grown to maybe 1 or 2% now.
At the moment, it does seem like John is still saving a little bit extra energy, but it's such a shorter race now with the conditions neutralizing that advantage put down. With 30 minutes left of this race and one cloud cell but seemingly still coming to the circuit, it's going to stay wet for the rest of this race, and John's not going to be able to make up a significant enough advantage to really put in the matter, and that gap now is up to 6.3 seconds over John when it started out nearly down to 3 after that pit stop initially. So Costa's really starting to come alive in terms of pace relative to John, and it seems like this two-horse battle has just become back in favour of Costa, when just before this pit stop it was starting to lean in John's favour. Looking down the order, Oliver is clearly out in P3, while Maitland is driving around down in P4. Still surviving in these wet conditions is going to be a feat for these drivers, especially with 30 more minutes potentially, and the overall ambient temperature going to be dropping down to 18 degrees by the end of this as well.
One thing to also note, obviously we're saying that Costa's got the advantage on pace. It definitely seems that way. But this is very much what things seem like in the first stint as well, is Costa had the advantage early on in the stint, and maybe Binder will start to come back towards the end, just like we did. But you can see the wide lines there coming in clutch there from Costa, just trying to avoid. Oh, it was a little bit wide there through the exit of the centre S, and maybe lost a little bit of time. But there's our first indication of where we are lap time wise, as Costa's got about half a second on Binder on that previous lap.
But yeah, at the moment, that mistake is definitely going to swing the gap to John's favor, as we see Costa very close to track limits. I don't know if he did run wide there, but so far Costa is trying to push and push. Maybe they believe that there is one more pit stop in this, so we shall see how it turns out. Will we see another pit stop just for fuel, or are they saving just to see if they can make it to the end?
So there is John Binder there in second place. I'm not sure if you guys know. I'm not fully 100% sure. How many track extensions is it till you get yourself a penalty? Ooh.
I think it should be around 27, I think, from what I recall from memory. So
27, that's a very random number. Okay, we saw John Binder there have a little bit of a moment there through the middle sector, as across the line goes Costa, and again that's another track extension there from Costa, so that they are very much racking up these track extensions very, very quickly, as Binder sets a lap time of a 1:49.549. Still, I don't think has the pace of Costa, but Costa has got to be careful, because more often than not, they are exceeding track limits at the moment.
Yeah, and if you exceed the track limits too much, if you do get those incident points,
it's wide again,
very past the limit, then you might be penalized with a drive-through penalty, I'm pretty sure, if you exceed track limits too much during the race.
Yeah, Costa is really, really pushing it. It's on edge, but it's all good, like pushing it. And if you've got a good rhythm going, that's not too much of an issue. But you can, if you push too hard, especially in these conditions, it is so easy for you to just push it a little bit too wide, drop it onto the curb, and round you go. And then all of a sudden, that's that 9-second that 9-second buffer that Costa has gone in the dust as they now exit the last couple of corners in this sector. But yeah, quite clearly, Costa has the pace advantage, but they're not keeping it on the track at the moment.
Oh. Yeah, Costa looking very slidey, especially through the middle sector, but it is still working out in their favor. Funnily enough, the sliding is helping Costa just bring the gap out. Just bit by bit, lap by lap, just Binder looks like they're struggling with this weather at the moment, as like you've mentioned earlier, Binder was looking stronger towards the end of the stint while Costa is stronger at the start, so maybe that is also another factor, but the energy is also depleting from Costa's car quicker than it is from Binder, so maybe some fuel saving tactics here and there to see if they can make it towards the end for Binder.
Yeah.
So coming back into it, I personally, from my point of view, 60% battery, don't think they can make it to the end on just the remaining fuel. Obviously, you can maybe just fuel for a little bit shorter period of time, but there are minimums to hit in WEC regulations, so that can only help you to a certain amount, even if you do have to fuel less. So at the moment, John's trying to play potentially a game of fuel saving, but Costa, in my opinion, has the right idea of just pure pushing, because I think that next pit stop is going to be almost mandatory.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on sort of Costa's pace? Because quite clearly that they are pushing hard and has done a lot of track extensions over the last few laps. What's your thoughts on that, Kieran? Because there's been a lot of track extensions from Costa, more often than not.
With that gap now building up to 10 seconds, I really think they need to try and just match the pace of John at this point. You've got the gap. You don't need to keep pushing it. I know anything can happen, but that's also kind of the story. Anything can happen. You might end up actually losing all of this 10-second gap due to a penalty, due to you making an unforced error. And with the grip seemingly maybe coming back just a little bit as the drivers are getting a little bit more comfortable, and with the track having a little bit less shine to it, and then maybe finally trying to get in a little bit of a line, definitely is room for Costa just to back off a little bit, as John clearly made a mistake on that last lap and they gained 1.5 seconds while he was trying to go sideways through a corner.
Yeah, I think John actually has track extended on that last lap because that last lap has now disappeared. But that has been what the story has been. I think Costa has about a lap advantage over Binder, certainly now. So yeah, quite clearly is feeling a lot more comfortable. But again, that's very, very wide on that curb. It's so easy to drop it, and I can't believe that Costa is pushing it quite this hard, because it does not take much for again that was like very wide again, almost losing it on the curb. You don't need to push it this hard, Costa. You don't want to lose it on the curb, spinning it round or firing yourself into a barrier.
Yeah, it looks like Costa's style AB's kind of hurting them at the moment, because yes, they are building the gap, but pushing too hard, making some slides here and there could lead to an unforced error like you guys have mentioned. But maybe Costa's more comfortable just driving like this, or if they change their pace, maybe that's when they make more mistakes. So potentially it's more onto the psychological now, where they're just sitting where they're comfortable. Really, I'm not too sure if you guys feel that way, but for me, I think I prefer just driving a set pace where I just maintain that throughout, rather than changing my pace based on situation, really.
Maybe,
yeah,
obviously, but I feel they've got such a big pace advantage, they can find some kind of equilibrium somewhere.
Yeah, I very much agree. There's a difference between finding a rhythm that's not quite at the maximum, but at the moment, and yeah, fair enough, Costa might have themselves a bit of a rhythm, but the rhythm looks like they're going to have an accident half the time, as again they run it wide again through turn number 4. Yes, it's great having a rhythm, but you just don't want to have a rhythm that all of a sudden you're going to have an accident. So it is about finding that middle ground, because yeah, if you drop it back, you will lose your rhythm, and that is also when you have an accident. Pace slightly, then
yeah, it looks like Costa does need to turn down a bit, because they are using the curbs in a wet track. The rain has come down, so these curbs are going to be extra slidey now this time, so maybe they just need to turn the pace down, just try to settle in a bit of better rhythm as they slide through that corner and onto the curbs once again, using all of the track still. But yeah, at the same time, they don't want to make a mistake.
Obviously, they are still finding the pace at the end of the day, and they are keeping it on track for now, as we see John really going wide as well. So it's not just Costa struggling in these situations. Obviously, John is still struggling themselves as well. This isn't just, oh, Costa's having the issues and we ignore everything else that is happening on track. We do have to admit, John is also struggling. These are conditions that drivers rarely drive in, and you can see that it's testing them. And right now, Costa's coming out the better, but it's still an endurance race at the end of the day. There's still 21 minutes left in this race, and looking at the future picture, I think that one pit stop, it's a little bit more questionable than what I'm thinking it of, but I still think it's going to end up happening at the end of the day, because they pit around 37 minutes.
So Binder has quite clearly got an energy advantage, 4% between the two of them. Something that may turn into a battle later on is Maitland is currently quite a bit faster than Oliver between 3rd and 4th place, so that could start to become spicy later on in the race. But Oliver looks like they've sort of got back into a rhythm there with 149.7. It is quite clearly we've got advantage. There you go, that's the difference between lap time. So last time around, Oliver was still half a second slower, and in 20 minutes of racing, that half a second can quite easily close up a gap. Oh, that was very, very wide there from Costa.
Yeah, Costa is just in their own place right now, but it looks like they are still pushing. But at the same time, we are seeing Mike slowly reel the gap to Oliver. So will we see a battle for the final step of the podium between the Lamborghini, driven by Mike Maitland, and the Aston Martin, driven by Yui Oliver?
We might see an extra battle slowly creeping in on us at the moment, but still a long way to tell, as we do have only 19 minutes left, and that gap isn't dropping at an absurd rate, but you might have to start paying a bit more attention to it, just in case it does start swinging very rapidly in the favour of Maitland down in that Lamborghini, trying to get a podium for him. A car that has seen a decent representation across this season overall, but right now this track is still seeming like the Porsche show, even with only just one on track.
Yeah, it does, very much so. Binder still a second off the pace of Costa. Costa quite clearly the fastest driver in these wet conditions, and certainly pushing for it, pushing the car. It is very much on the teetering edge. Good car control from him through these last few laps. Has burned through a bit of extra energy. Maybe Binder is looking to save that little bit of energy to then push harder towards the end of the race. That was very, very hard on the curbs. That's going to be losing them an awful lot of time through there.
Yeah, it just looks like the battle between the top two is just eking out now, as Costa is looking very strong in the Porsche here in the wet conditions, but there is 17, just about 18, under 18 minutes left of this race, but the energy situation is looking very close So 40% for Costa and 44% for Binder. If Binder can stretch this fuel just a little bit more, maybe they are within a shout of making it to the end. But Costa is also looking very strong with 40. So at the moment, as things stand, both of them might have to do a pit stop before the end or in the closing stages of this race.
Look at Oliver with 45 or 46% there. So Oliver's got an even more battery or more energy than the rest of the field. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up, because they've only got, what's that? That's to the car behind. What they've got to the car in front. It's just showing those two gaps, but yeah, they might also then jump forward when pit stops happen, if pits in and they don't have to.
Yeah, definitely fuel strategy is coming into effect here, but at the same time the time is getting very close, so at this moment in time it looks quite good for these drivers with the amount of energy that they have with only 16 minutes left in this race. So just some quick maths calculation would help with the overall knowledge of if anyone has to pit. So
unfortunately, quite large gaps here found at the BUSR today, but we do at least have one of those gaps starting to shrink, and that is the Lamborghini to Oliver. That's now down to 14 seconds with 15 minutes left in this race. It's still going to be a second a lap needing to be found by that Lamborghini, but currently they are on that pace. Last lap finding 1.5 seconds over Oliver in that Aston Martin, and then maybe in these wet conditions, that engine discrepancy to that Aston Martin being equalized out, having that more central weight in that Lamborghini is actually making it a lot easier for Mike Lander to find consistency and pace. And right now, in terms of track limits, they seem to be the one that isn't going over him by the biggest margin. They seem to be keeping within the track limits the most comfortably.
Yeah, I agree with that one. It's a payoff when it comes to these wet conditions with the car that you bring. Oliver would be struggling an awful lot more with that extra bit of oversteer, but won't struggle as much with traction, because you don't have quite the same pendulum effect with all the weight at the front of the car, with the weight at the back of the car. With these mid-engine cars, as soon as you turn in, the car's trying to rotate itself, especially on a less grippy circuit, and it's all about trying to get the brake bias to your liking to reduce that as much as possible. And as you start to trail brake, it's all about making that as comfortable as possible, with the mixture of brake bias and trail braking.
yeah, so at the moment I have done some maths calculation, just an estimate of their fuel standing, and it looks like with 30% of fuel for Costa, they are very close to not making it to the line. They are the ones on the edge, then they are the ones with the least amount of energy. But it looks like for Binder, at this moment in time, the race at around 14 minutes was about 7 laps, and each lap is around 4% really for some of these drivers at their current pace. So at this moment in time, most of the drivers have enough fuel, but it is Costa who is the one that is close.
Pulling it all the way to the end, but it's all about if you got your calculations correct at this point. Binder quite clearly feels like they needed to save a little bit. If Costa's going to be on that teetering edge, then they just need, if they're going to be under fuel, they just need to push it now and try and get a pit stop in hand, because it's too late to try and save loads of fuel, because you're just going to lose heaps and heaps of time. As into the pits, we got our first pit stop in these wet conditions.
Yeah, just Mike calling it there. Looks like they aren't confident that they will make it to the end of the race, so they are going for a quick splash and dash and see if they can just start pushing while these guys are saving. So despite having to take a pit stop, they might end up a lap down, but they are going to be able to push now and slowly just close the gap to Oliver there for P3, who's really Mike's been chasing down for the entirety of the wet stint.
Yeah, I think if we look at that sort of battle there, it's now they've now got 12% difference in energy and 20% difference compared to our race leader Costa. So it'd be very, very interesting to see how this all sorts of pays out, and whether Costa might be pushing that little bit of extra to then try and get in and out in relative terms compared to Binder, where I think if you do feel like you're on the edge, it's better just to commit and just push now, box in, and then get out and just run it to the end.
Yeah, if I'm Oliver at this point, after Mattlander's already took their pit stop, I think it's the right decision just to make sure you make it to the end. It might be a bit risky though, with the pace discrepancy between the two, as the Lamborghini has definitely been driving really strong in this ending part of the race, but you need to make sure you make it to the end. You do have a healthy amount of battery though compared to some of the other people on the grid, but I also noticed between Costa and Binder that it's kind of stabilized between 2 and 3%. Hasn't really gone anywhere past that at this point, so either John started pushing a bit more, or Costa has found a way to save just a little bit more energy, but it's going to be a long way to the end. And with the times in about the 1 minute 45s or higher, they need to really probably find one extra lap worth of fuel somewhere magically to make it to the end.
Yeah, it looks like they are making the call of maybe just pushing now, as we see Costa very slightly, that rear end is kicking out, so maybe they are pushing now as the lap times have gone slowly down. It seems like down to 47s, which they were doing 48s during their saving really, so maybe they are starting to push now and have made the call to just play it safe.
We have to remember, it's lap of +1. Once that time has gone to the end, they have to do one more race, so it's really important. One more race? One more
race? Hold on.
Yeah, I'd love to get one more race if we had like a 20-car grid. That'd be great. They need to get at least one more lap in, even after hit 0, and they've crossed that line, so we're looking at quite a bit of distance still left to go, even if that time is finally starting to tick down.
I think Oliver potentially is in the box seat, and I know you said that potentially it'd be better to hit in, and I don't think they'll have enough to catch up to Costa, but I think they're in the best possible position to extend it to the end with they've got 6% more over John Binder and even more over the race leader, so I think they can probably stretch it to the end, which then puts them a lot more in safe hands compared to 4th place man Mattlands.
Yeah, it's now a story of how hard can Maitland push that Lamborghini just to close up to Oliver, who has a massive gap of around a minute if I was correct, because I think a pit stop around here it takes longer than a minute, so depending on how much fuel they take, actually, sorry for that mistake, so it depends on how much fuel they take, but these cars do stay a long time in the pit lane, so Oliver might have a chance of stealing a 2nd place if they don't have to pit for fuel.
Yeah, getting to see Oliver on track just a little bit. Oliver is definitely struggling in that Aston Martin to just get that rotation and biting on the front end in these slippy conditions, as you see through this corner, especially when they tap onto that curb. It's just a little bit lethargic in that Aston Martin, so they're having to make sure that this car is very much planted and driven very carefully, which is why their pace is probably so slow compared to that Lamborghini. But looking at the energy, we've got 7.5 minutes plus one lap to do, and John Binder is down to 14% battery and actually caught up to what Costa is. The gap has completely diminished between the two, so I think John has admitted he has to full push now, but that's after falling 22.5 seconds down on Costa, and I don't think both of these are making it to the end with roughly 2.5, 3 laps of fuel left.
Yeah, one thing to keep note as well, for Oliver, they might be in a better spot at the moment, but if that energy does tick past 0%, that is a 30-second stop and go penalty. So it's a very dangerous game that they're playing at this moment in time, but they are in the driving seat in terms of fuel at the moment, aside from Mike, who has made that pit stop already.
Yeah, it depends on where that +1 lap lands. Oliver potentially right now can make it to the end if they get that +1, land in a very fortunate position where for them personally, they're not really getting that much extra out of it. So it's going to be very interesting to see this last 6 minutes. The gaps have been really wide, but we've been treated to at least some kind of interest in terms of strategy.
Yeah, at this moment in time, Oliver is the one who has to do some fuel saving, but Costa and Binder have now decided to start pushing as they are getting closer to that pit stop window. They are not gonna make it on fuel, so they are now trying to push as much as they can. Their lap times are not showing it at the moment, but 1:49s. Maybe the weather is also getting worse, so but it didn't seem like there was a change in the rain intensity. It's maybe just the track, as we see some puddles forming now, so maybe it is the standing water that's accumulated. So maybe these drivers are now struggling more on grip because the water is not evaporating as much as it was at the start.
One thing I'll certainly from my personal experience that from racing, in the full wet conditions where you've got standing water, as long as you don't go through all the puddles, yes, you're slower, but it's a lot easier to drive. The car is more balanced, and the track is slower, but it's actually, weirdly enough, it's easier to not make mistakes, because it's just so much easier to be more consistent. The track feels more consistent than if you are in that sort of greasy stage where there's a wet blanket round the track, but it's not much. As Binder now decides to pit, and let's see if Oliver is able to extend and what the difference will be between the two of them once Binder comes back.
Yeah, at the moment Oliver is in a weird spot in terms of energy. 11% is cutting it very close, like Torium has mentioned before. It is that +1 that could potentially ruin their race, so we shall see later on how much fuel saving can they do.
So let's see where Binder is in comparison here to Oliver as they now come down the straight. They are coming through the center S's. Is Binder, so they're going to be very, very close. But I think Binder will just about have it over Oliver. It's going to be close between the two of them. And then we're going to see who's got the better pace, because obviously Binder's tyres will potentially have dropped off temperature-wise in the pit lane, but they also will have fuel to burn. It was very close, but Binder has the advantage as currently now.
careful out of the first corner, but they really have to take, really pushing onto that track limits. We don't necessarily know how close they are. And as you said, though, I think the crucial thing here, even if the tires have cooled down, even if they have switched tires, they're going to have to, actually, as we see Costa overshoot the pit stop, so that's going to add a couple of seconds of time to Costa's pit stop as well. But they did have a large margin over Binder, but maybe just being able to push on the fuel for one more lap, as Costa was heavily off of the throttle, Binder might catch up a huge amount of time, but I doubt it's going to be anything good enough to really be in contention. That gap Costa grew was quite significant, as you see Binder still struggling with some of these corners, even now that they can push on this battery and energy store, because of the fact that they have these tires that have grown colder nonetheless. And Oliver, 7% left. I think it's sadly gonna have to be them coming to the pit lane this lap.
Costa going through the center S's now to rejoin the lead, and surely it is plain sailing for the blue Porsche 911 as they now come into turn number 4 with what will be 2 laps to go. Sorry, 3 laps to go. This is their third to last lap, unless they decide to drop their pace significantly. Oliver comes into the pits, and that will very much spice things up for third place, because Matland has been pushing on their full fuel load. So how are things going to end up for third place? It would be very interesting to see, because there wasn't too much between them before the pit stop, and surely Oliver hasn't had the pace of their rival. But we will be coming round to go on to the penultimate lap at the end of this one.
Yeah, this is where you're going to see if Oliver's had the pace to offset Maitlander pitting way early on. But that's the other thing, though. Maitlander had pit earlier, so potentially pit for longer due to the fact that they added maybe a little bit more fuel. But, oh my god, Costa's really running out of this circuit. You've got 25-second gap, mate. I'm not sure why we're pushing that far off onto the greasy stuff that has had no running in. As we're seeing in the darkness fall underneath the circuit, the lights flicker on, and Binder also struggling now as well. These track temperatures really dropping down. I did also hear that this track temperature is meant to be getting down to 15 degrees, but luckily they decided it's not right. They're going to stick it to 18, and we're really seeing just how hard it is. There's 3 more degrees. Maybe we would have seen a spin in these conditions, as how hard these drivers are starting to find it.
Maitland has taken third place from Oliver. So, with that pitting earlier there from Maitland, has actually ended up taking advantage. There's not too much between the two of them. So it just shows you the fine margins of actually trying to extend and not being able to make it. Oliver has fallen out here of what could have potentially been close to a P2. Has now ended up pushing for that P2, has ended up causing them to fall to 4th place. But we are on the penultimate lap now with Costa as they now head into the middle sector.
Oh yeah, one key thing there for Mike, even though he pitted earlier, the fuel percentage. So if we're able to switch back over to Mike's view here, just a second, 6%, 5%. So Mike is cutting it very close here. So
with 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go.
Yeah.
I doubt that Mike can make it with this fuel as they run wide in turn 1. That's not gonna help them with the gap as well. They're trying to fuel save, but making mistakes at this end of the race. So it's very difficult to just see if Mike can make it to the line, really, to just survive on fuel. But it looks like you and Oliver might be able to close the gap while Mike is doing everything to save.
They're surely not going to make it to the end.
Yeah, didn't put in enough fuel in that pit stop, it seems. 4%. It's going to be hard to get it round to the end of this one. Oh, actually, it seems like it has triggered the final lap of the race. We didn't get the proper notification for it, but as Costa crossed the line, that was the final lap. Maitlander might have been saved by the fact that they are a lap down here. Maybe not necessarily fully keeping track of where the leaders were off the track. So, yeah, Costa came across the line in P number 1, Binder in P number 2. And then Mightlander's going to have to find it quite difficult here to just extend this 2%. You've got to crawl all the way up of the hill still left. Yes, there's 2% battery, but that hill does take quite a lot. So you see a half throttle, not even sticking it full until the last second. It's only for a blip to round this last corner. How late is it going to be on the throttle? And is there any car in their rear view mirror due to how late they're getting onto the accelerator here? Luckily, that 6-second gap seems to be clearly enough, but it might just be a lift to the end once that battery does tick down, as it is. Yeah, you see it. That is just going to be a pure lift to the end, just to make sure that they don't dip below 0% battery, as they do hit it on the marker, but that doesn't mean they're completely out, just means they have dropped below 1%.
No, it's a victory there for Costa in their Porsche, taking the victory and controlling the race as soon as it hit a little bit of rain. It did start to get a little bit spicy in the middle part of the race when the rain started to fall, with chasing the chasing McLaren in behind was getting closer and closer, but Costa was able to stay and keep an advantage and take the victory by storm by quite some margin in the end.
As we are starting to get ready for some interviews here, but looks like we do have the drivers in the waiting room, so who shall we drag in first?
Shall we go with our race winner first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go with our race winner first. And Kieran, do you want to take the first question?
Yeah, I'm icebreakers.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how to
figure out Discord names. My bad. Welcome on in. Able to come away with a swimming victory in the rain. How are you feeling today?
Well, hello guys. I'm feeling great. The wet part was pretty difficult.
Yeah, congratulations on that race. And when it came to the stop onto those wet tyres, what were your thoughts? Were your thoughts to try and drag out the car, or drag out to the end? We know obviously in the end you had to make another pit stop, but did you think you'd make it to the end, or did you just go full chat and know that you had to make another stop?
So for first stop, I just full pushed, and I did the same for the second stop. And at some point it got so wet that it was basically undrivable. I was going off the racetrack at every braking point, even if I braked really early. But for the last stop, I just fuse saved, but it was not enough to go without a pit stop.
Yeah, so it was looking very dangerous out on track there. The rain definitely limited the grip. We saw you go off multiple times throughout that race. Were you in any sort of danger in terms of penalties to getting like a drive-through or anything like that?
Yes, actually, I was pretty close to getting a drive-through for track limits. I was at 3.5 at the end of the race.
So yeah, despite that, you showed amazing pace. Guessing you were just trying to push. So congratulations on your win there for the final round for the season.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Obviously,
Go on.
that leaves us on to second place, and that was going to be John, a driver we've got familiar with here. How are you doing today, John?
Hello. Been alright.
McDonald's.
It's fine. I forgot to turn that off. Not like
Welcome to McDonald's, everyone.
Yeah, we were all familiar with that sound. So.
Oh my goodness, what a race. That's all I have to say. From what I saw in turn 1 and myself losing it in the final corner because I touched the TC override button.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Could have been a better result.
Talk us through that turn 1 quickly, because obviously it all just got thrown wide open when a charging Mustang started to decide that they wanted to target lock on our pole sitter.
I won't lie, I don't know what the intention was, but this is an endurance race. The last thing you want to do is send it 3-4 wide into turn 1 on the first lap. In my opinion, that was just a bit asinine, but, you know, it depends on the racer, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it as a decent opportunity to pull my way up to P2, so I'll take it.
Yeah, we saw you move up to P2 in that incident, but during the later part of the first stint, you were closing in, but when the rain dropped, you slowly just lost time lap after lap. Were you struggling with the weather conditions, or is it just down to pure practice pace?
I'll be honest, it's kind of a mix of both. I'll say more on the lines of I didn't practice the wet at all, unlike Barcelona. I think initially the wet was fine. Like, the track was relatively damp, so I would say it was fine, but just later on, like, it just kept getting wetter and wetter and wetter. And even on the wet tires itself, it wasn't fun to drive at all. Like, I tried doing a wet line, that didn't work. I'll change the reference 50 meters, but before the usual reference, didn't work. I don't know. And then also tripping the traction control override on exit of the last corner didn't help as well. I lost, I think, 10 seconds on that. Overall, I'd say my wet performance wasn't great.
One last question before we move on to our third place man. When you first went into the pits for the wet tyres, was your aim to try and extend it to the end of the race, or did you feel like you knew you had to pit, so it was all about just trying to get the most pace and then going for a last gasp attempt for fuel?
I get what you mean. The preferred and I think the most optimal strategy was to stretch it as much as possible, in my opinion, because I think it was a 2-stopper at the end and I had basically a gas and dash, maybe about 20 seconds. So I think if I did stretch the tank on the second stint, I probably would have made it to the end. But I think in hindsight, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just having fun, just driving my own race.
Well, thank you as well for at least showing up to pretty much every single race this season. At least we've had you to join us for all of these races. As one of the drivers who have done the most races, how does it feel at least being able to do most of them?
I mean, initially it was alright. There was a lot of people, I think, in GT3, but as the season went on, the numbers started to drop and then rise again. But overall, it was still a fun season nonetheless.
I see. Been great seeing you racing. Thank you once again, and hope you have a great evening, although I think most of us will potentially see you around anyway.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, guys.
That leaves us with just one final person. Welcome in, and how does it feel to somehow get onto the podium in a wet, fuel-saving oddity of a race at Interlagos, to say the least? You there?
Hello? Is anyone there?
Hello?
Someone's fallen asleep at the wheel.
Ah, there we go. There we go. The push to talk was turned off. Nah, thank you. It's honestly been a fantastic. It's a fantastic sort of end because I thought let's drive GT3 for the end because well we weren't going to have any LMP2. Don't really drive GT3. It's not my normal thing. And I thought I'd pay homage by driving a car that Alexa ran in the first season. So that's why you saw the Uru livery. It was not a fuel-saving race, honestly. It was mostly done by tyres. I pretty much pushed the first stint. Second stint was into the wets, and I saw an opportunity. The rain actually kind of stopped before starting again. So I thought, let's change tyres. My tyres are overheating, and that undercut just allowed me to outpace Yui in almost like 20 seconds game back. And by the time Yui had to go in for a quick stop, I was ahead by about 6 seconds, and that's how we got the podium.
Yeah, obviously you pitted earlier than the rest of the grid there at the end, but you were cutting it very close on fuel. Were you saving at any point at the last stint for yourself?
No. Honestly, it was more about, like I said, I think there was not much. There was a little bit maybe of saving at the end, maybe in the last couple of corners. I pretty much had it. I have a little calculation on my steering wheel. It's my own algorithm, and it told me that with the calculation that I put in on the fuel and the virtual energy, I would get across the line at 0.1, and it was exactly 0.1 of a virtual energy and fuel to the exact. I think it was a 0.2 difference. So it was a very well calculated. I'm not going to lie, most people would probably not want to go near it, but really it was the only way to keep that advantage. If I add an extra two to three an extra laps worth of fuel, that's the equivalent of 7 seconds. I wouldn't have overtaken you in the end, so I had to do it, and yeah, it worked out.
I think there's going to be a lot of people here listening that will want to hire you as a race engineer with all those calculations going on in the background. Brilliant. Sort of what these cars like to drive in the wet conditions, because there was a lot of drivers going wide, picking up a lot of track limits, and certainly with the mid-engine cars, they looked very much a handful on the accelerator pedal.
Yeah, I think the Lamborghini in particular, you saw a car go earlier in the race off that particular corner. The car gets very loose because the mid-engine, it wants to rotate naturally, and the car, especially when it's heavier, it will want to try and rotate off the track. And when it came to the wet conditions, you just had to put a bit more margin. But as soon as the way that I kind of set my car up, I had I have a very stiff rear end. Actually, no, a very loose rear end, actually, very stiff front. And so the car, even when it goes to wet conditions, is able to kind of keep itself relatively on the track, but not have. The problem with it is just I have to use a lot of ABS, and I was going into a lot of the ABS, I was going wide occasionally. So that's kind of a trade-off. You can make the car safer for wet conditions, but the other problem is it does mean that you have a car that's harder to rotate, especially in dry conditions. And you saw other drivers were just faster than me in the dry, and fair enough. But I think in the end of the day, when you've got changeable conditions, it's about how well you trust the electronics on the car, how well you trust the setup you've got, and finally just all of the data that you have. And I'm a data analyst, that's what I do. So for me, it's not a problem at all, and we in the end drove to a relatively well race. I will say as well, just on the side, this is my last time ROing in the BUSR. It's been a good time the last 3 years, doing ACC, AC, and now LMU, but it's been a good fun, honestly, for everyone. Like I said, big thank you to John, who's helped me throughout the season. He's been fantastic. And Alexa, who's been with me since when I started ROing back in 2023, I think it was. So, yeah, it's been a lovely ride. Good end to a race. And it's been a good end, I think, to LMU as well, which is probably twilighting after this.
Yeah, definitely a fantastic end to the season, and congratulations for all of your time that you've put in, and thank you as well for the efforts that you have shown for LMU, AC, and ACC.
No worries, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that is the end of the interviews and the final round here at the BUSR for LMU. Wrapping up the final week as well here for the BUSR. We've got one more race on Saturday for F1 that everyone should tune into, as we have plenty of drivers still in contention, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can crown a 7th winner in 8 races. That will be Liam Doherty, who will be at play for that title of that, though. So it's going to be interesting to see if everyone can tune into that one, and it's been a great one here at the LMU with a great little bit of a wet race. And I've been joined by Rel and Adam who have been a pleasure to commentate with, and thank you to our producer as well. Please tune in for that F1 race and have a great evening. Thank you once again from the BUSR.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.